I spent 20 years of my life building Thomson Technologies from a garage startup into a $4.2 billion empire. 20 years of 16-hour days, missed holidays, and sacrificed relationships. But at my father's 70th birthday celebration last month, everything I'd built was handed to my golden boy brother on a silver platter. Michael, Dad said, raising his champagne glass as 200 guests watched. It's time you stepped down. David will be taking over as CEO effective immediately. The room fell silent. I sat there, fork suspended over my untouched prime rib, watching my life's work slip away in front of Austin's tech elite. Mom squeezed David's hand proudly while Dad continued his speech about fresh blood and new direction. Not once did he mention the patents I held, the relationships I'd built, or the fact that our AI-driven logistics platform, the crown jewel generating 85% of our revenue, was actually owned by my separate company. That oversight would cost them everything. My name is Michael Thompson, and this is the story of how I learned that in American family businesses, blood isn't always thicker than water, especially when there's billions at stake. Back in 2003, I was fresh out of UT Austin with a computer science degree and a head full of dreams. While my classmates were chasing jobs at Dell or IBM, I saw an opportunity in the exploding e-commerce space. Small businesses were drowning in logistics nightmares, unable to compete with Amazon's supply chain efficiency. Dad had always been supportive but skeptical. "Mike, you're smart, but business isn't just about code," he'd say from behind his newspaper in our modest Pflugerville home. "Maybe you should get some real experience first." But I had vision. While David was at Wharton learning theoretical frameworks, I was solving real problems. My first software solution helped local retailers track inventory across multiple platforms. eBay, their websites, physical stores. It wasn't sexy, but it worked. The breakthrough came in 2005 when Whole Foods gave us a shot. Their regional distribution was a mess, costing them millions in inefficiencies. My AI-powered logistics platform cut their operational costs by 30% in the first quarter. Word spread fast in Austin's tight-knit business community. "Jesus, Mike," Dad said one evening, staring at our first million-dollar quarter report. "Maybe you were onto something after all." Mom beamed from the kitchen doorway. "I always knew our Mikey was special, but don't let it go to your head, sweetheart." Those were the good days, when family meant support, not sabotage. By 2010, we'd expanded nationwide. Thomson Technologies was handling logistics for everyone from artisan coffee roasters to major retail chains. Our AI platform, which I'd named Flowmaster, was learning, adapting, predicting supply chain disruptions before they happened. We survived the 2008 recession by helping companies do more with less. David graduated from Wharton in 2009 with honors and immediately landed a prestigious position at Goldman Sachs. He'd call home every few months, regaling us with stories of Manhattan penthouses and celebrity clients. "You're doing great with your little computer thing, Mike," he'd say condescendingly. "But when you're ready to play in the big leagues, let me know." I wasn't bitter then. I was too busy building. The turning point came in 2000 when we hit our first billion-dollar valuation. Suddenly, David's tune changed. "You know what, Mike?" he said during one of his rare visits home. "Maybe it's time I brought some real business expertise to Thomson Technologies. Goldman's been great, but family comes first." Dad's eyes lit up. "That would be wonderful, son. Mike could use someone with your Wall Street experience." I should have seen the warning signs. The way David immediately started questioning our operational structure, suggesting we needed proper governance and strategic oversight. The way he began scheduling calls with Dad that I wasn't invited to. The way he started using phrases like fiduciary responsibility and maximizing shareholder value. But I was focused on innovation. In 2016, we launched Flowmaster 3.0, incorporating machine learning that could predict consumer demand patterns 6 months out. Our client retention rate hit 97%, revenue soared to $4.2 billion. That's when the family dynamics really shifted. "Mike, I've been thinking," Dad said during one of our quarterly board meetings. "Maybe it's time we formalized our structure. David's been reviewing our operations and he's identified some inefficiencies." David cleared his throat, pulling out a leather portfolio. "What Dad's trying to say is that while the company's grown remarkably under Mike's technical leadership, we're not optimized for scale. We need strategic partnerships, maybe an IPO track. That requires a different skill set." I stared at them both. Different skill set? I built this company from nothing. Our clients trust me personally. And that's exactly the problem. David continued smoothly. Too much dependence on one person. What happens if something happens to you? We need redundancy, proper succession planning. Mom nodded along from her seat. David makes good points, sweetheart. You've always been better with computers than people. The knife twisted deeper with each family meeting. David was building a case brick by brick that I was too technical to lead a billion-dollar enterprise. He brought in consultants from McKinsey who produced reports full of corporate buzzwords and recommendations for leadership restructuring. But I had an ace up my sleeve that none of them knew about. See, back in 2008, during the financial crisis, I'd made a decision that seemed paranoid at the time. I was watching companies get gutted by investors, founders, pushed out of their own creations. So I did something unusual. I separated my core intellectual property. Flowmaster, the AI platform that powered everything we did, wasn't owned by Thomson Technologies. It was owned by Microtech Innovations LLC, a company I'd quietly incorporated in Delaware. Thomson Technologies licensed Flowmaster under a renewable agreement that I reviewed annually. I'd buried this detail in mountains of legal paperwork over the years. Even our lawyers didn't fully understand the structure. Dad trusted me to handle the technical side, so he never dug deeper. As David's campaign against me intensified through 2019 and early 2023, I started preparing for the inevitable. I quietly renewed contracts with our biggest clients, making sure they understood that their relationships were with me personally, not just Thomson Technologies. I documented every innovation, every strategic decision, every late-night breakthrough that had built our empire. The final board meeting was scheduled for Dad's 70th birthday celebration. David had orchestrated it perfectly, a party full of Austin's business elite tech celebrities and family friends, maximum witnesses for his coronation. The Four Seasons ballroom had never looked more beautiful or felt more like a funeral. David had spared no expense. Ice sculptures, live jazz quartet, a champagne fountain that probably cost more than most people's cars. 300 guests mingled under crystal chandeliers, including the governor of Texas Dell's leadership team and half the Austin tech community. I arrived in my simple black suit, the same one I'd worn to a dozen industry conferences. David immediately pounced. Jesus, Mike, this is Dad's 70th. Couldn't you have made an effort? Mark Benioff is here. Tim Cook sent a representative. These people matter. I ignored him and found my seat at the family table between Mom and my Uncle Frank. Dad looked distinguished at the head table, silver-haired and commanding in his custom tuxedo. This was his moment, the patriarch of a tech dynasty. After dinner, David stood up, champagne glass in hand. The room gradually quieted as he began to speak. Ladies and gentlemen, family and friends, thank you for joining us to celebrate not just Dad's 70th birthday, but the incredible legacy he's built. Polite applause rippled through the crowd. Thomson Technologies started as a dream in a garage, but Dad always knew it would take more than one person to realize its full potential. David's eyes found mine across the room. That's why effective Monday morning I'll be taking over as CEO of Thomson Technologies. The room buzzed with surprised murmurs. I felt like I was watching my execution from outside my own body. For too long, we've been limited by outdated thinking. While I have tremendous respect for Mike's technical contributions, building a multi-billion-dollar enterprise requires vision, strategic partnerships, and frankly, the kind of business acumen you don't learn from coding. Several tech CEOs in the audience nodded approvingly. This was the language they spoke: disruption, optimization, strategic realignment. Mike, you're brilliant at what you do. David continued, his voice dripping with false sympathy. But let's be honest, you're not cut out for this level of leadership. It's time to step aside and let professionals handle the business side while you focus on technical maintenance. The silence was deafening. 400 eyes turned to me, waiting for tears, arguments, maybe a dramatic breakdown. Even Dad was watching expectantly, probably hoping I'd gracefully accept my demotion. Instead, I stood up slowly, straightened my tie, and smiled. Congratulations, Dave, I said, my voice carrying clearly across the silent ballroom. I hope you enjoy running Thomson Technologies. I paused, letting the moment build. All 18 months of it. With that, I walked out of the ballroom, leaving behind a room full of confused whispers and one very puzzled new CEO. Monday morning arrived gray and cold. I got to the office at 6 a.m., 2 hours before anyone else, and waited in my office, soon-to-be former office, with a stack of legal documents and a laptop full of emails I'd prepared over the weekend. David strutted in at 8:30 with Dad and Mom trailing behind. already talking about reorganization and new strategic initiatives. They found me sitting calmly at the conference table, documents spread out like a legal war zone. Mike, I'm glad you're being reasonable about this, Dad said, settling into his chair. David's got some exciting ideas for the company's future. I'm sure he does, I replied, sliding a thick folder across the table. But first we need to discuss a few technicalities. David barely glanced at the papers. Look, Mike, I know this is hard, but we've already discussed your severance package. It's generous $10 million and full benefits for 2 years. Plus you can consult on technical matters. I laughed, actually laughed, and their faces fell. Dave, I don't think you understand. These aren't severance papers. They're termination notices. Termination notices? Mom looked confused. Sweetheart, what do you mean? I pulled up my laptop and began reading from the screen. As of 9:47 a.m. this morning, Microtech Innovations LLC has terminated its licensing agreement with Thomson Technologies for the Flowmaster platform. I looked up at their stunned faces. You know Flowmaster, the AI system that handles 85% of our revenue? The color drained from David's face. That's impossible. Flowmaster is our core technology. It's owned by Thomson Technologies. Actually, no, I continued calmly, pulling out another set of documents. Flowmaster is owned by Microtech Innovations, a company I incorporated in Delaware 15 years ago. Thomson Technologies has been licensing it under renewable agreements. Agreements that expired. I checked my watch. About 20 minutes ago. Dad's hand trembled as he reached for the papers. Mike, what are you saying? I'm saying that as of this moment, Thomson Technologies has no legal right to use the software that runs our entire operation. Every client contract, every data stream, every predictive algorithm, it all belongs to me. The room fell dead silent, except for the sound of David frantically scrolling through his phone, probably texting the legal team. But that's not all. I continued, enjoying the growing panic in their eyes. Over the weekend, I sent personalized messages to our top 50 clients companies, representing about $2 billion in annual contracts. I explained the leadership transition and my departure from Thomson Technologies. I pulled up my email and began reading responses. Walmart's CPO writes, Mike, our partnership was built on your personal oversight. If you're not involved, we'll need to reassess our relationship. Target's logistics director. We've had standing instructions that any major changes to Thomson's leadership structure would trigger our contract review clause. Amazon's procurement team. Thanks for the heads up. We'll be exercising our 30-day termination option and look forward to discussing alternatives with your new venture. David's face had gone from pale to green. You can't do this. This is industrial sabotage. We'll sue you for everything you're worth. With what legal standing? I asked, genuinely curious. I'm terminating contracts that I own with companies that contracted specifically for my services. It's called capitalism, Dave. I thought they taught that at Wharton. Mom was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. Michael, please, this will destroy the company, destroy everything your father built. No, Mom. This will destroy what you tried to steal from me. Dad built a garage startup. I built $1 billion empire. There's a difference. I stood up, straightening my jacket. So here's how this works. You have 2 options. Option 1, I walk away, take my technology, my clients, and my team. Thomson Technologies becomes an empty shell, and you can explain to those 300 guests from Friday night why the company's value just dropped to 0. And option 2, Dad asked weakly. There is no option 2. You made your choice Friday night. Now live with it. The legal battles raged for 3 months. David hired every corporate attorney in Texas, filing injunctions, non-compete challenges, and theft of trade secrets lawsuits. But the contracts were airtight. I'd been preparing for this possibility for over a decade. By December 2023, Thomson Technologies' stock had crashed from $847 per share to $23. Major clients had fled, taking their $4.2 billion in annual revenue with them. The tech press was calling it the most spectacular family business implosion in Silicon Valley history. Dad called me once during the worst of it in early 2024. Mike, please, oops. His voice was broken, older than I'd ever heard it. We can work something out. The company is dying. The company died the moment you chose David over Merritt, I replied. I'm sorry, Dad, but some mistakes can't be undone. That conversation haunts me still. My exile wasn't to some abandoned Soviet town, but it felt like banishment nonetheless. I moved to a small coastal town in Northern California, Mendocino population 894. It was about as far from Austin's tech scene as I could get while staying in America. The locals thought I was just another burned-out tech worker seeking peace among the redwoods. I rented a modest house overlooking the Pacific and told people I was consulting. Which was technically true. I was consulting with myself about my next move. The first month was hell. 20 years of identity wrapped up in Thomson Technologies gone overnight. I'd wake up at 5 a.m., out of habit, then remember I had nowhere to go, no empire to run, no billion-dollar decisions to make. But anger is a powerful motivator. By February 2024, I'd incorporated Nextflow Dynamics in Delaware and begun assembling a team. The tech world is surprisingly small. Word spreads fast when someone with my track record goes independent. Within weeks, I was fielding calls from former Thomson Technologies employees, competitors, and clients looking for alternatives. My first hire was Sarah Chen Thompson's former head of AI development, who'd quit in protest when David took over. "I've been waiting for your call, Mike," she said over a video chat from her apartment in San Francisco. "What took you so long?" Next came Marcus Rodriguez, our former VP of Business Development, and Jennifer Walsh, our head of client relations. One by one, the core team that had built Thomson Technologies' success defected to my new venture. Not because I recruited them, because they sought me out. The breakthrough came in May when Tesla's logistics team reached out directly. They'd been Thomson Technologies clients for 5 years, but their contract had expired during the K. "We need Flowmaster 4.0, their procurement director told me bluntly. "Whatever it costs." I smiled for the first time in months. Actually, I've been working on something better. Flowmaster 4.0 was everything its predecessor wasn't: faster, smarter, more adaptive. But more importantly, it was built from the ground up for the modern supply chain challenges of 2024, climate change disruptions, geopolitical tensions, post-pandemic consumer behavior patterns. While David was running Thomson Technologies into the ground with his McKinsey-approved optimization strategies, I was solving the problems that would define the next decade of logistics. The Tesla contract was worth $400 million over 3 years. Apple followed with a $600 million deal. Then Microsoft, then Google. By October 2024, Nextflow Dynamics had $2.1 billion in contracted revenue and a team of 847 employees. The tech press noticed. "Thomson's Revenge," read the headline in TechCrunch. "How a family feud created Silicon Valley's hottest startup." Venture capitalists circled like sharks. Andreessen Horowitz offered me a $5 billion valuation for 20% of the company. I turned them down. Sequoia came in at $7 billion, still no. "Mike, you're being irrational," my CFO warned during one of our weekly meetings. "This kind of valuation won't last forever." "It's not about the money," I explained, staring out at the Mendocino coastline. "It's about proving a point." By December 2024, exactly 1 year after Thomson Technologies' collapse, Nextflow Dynamics was valued at $12 billion. We were handling logistics for companies representing over $200 billion in annual revenue. Our AI platform was predicting supply chain disruptions with 97% accuracy, saving our clients an estimated $8.4 billion in the first year alone. But the real validation came from an unexpected source. David's wedding was scheduled for Saturday, February 14th, 2025, at the Ritz-Carlton in Half Moon Bay. Valentine's Day, how perfectly, David. The society pages were full of details about the tech dynasty merger between David Thomson and Victoria Hartwell, daughter of Hartwell Industries CEO. I wasn't invited, of course, but I knew about it anyway. Austin's tech community is incestuous and news travels fast. Especially news about the spectacular failure of Thomson Technologies and the golden boy who'd driven it into bankruptcy. The plan formed slowly, like crystals growing in a solution. I'd spent the year building Nextflow into everything Thomson Technologies could have been. Now it was time for the final act. On Friday, February 13th, I chartered a Gulfstream G650 from San Francisco to Half Moon Bay. The flight took 47 minutes. As we descended toward the private airfield, I could see the Ritz-Carlton's sprawling grounds below, already bustling with wedding preparations. I wasn't crashing the wedding that would be crude, undignified. Instead, I was making a statement that required perfect timing and absolute precision. The Ritz-Carlton Half Moon Bay looks like a fairy tale castle perched on dramatic cliffs overlooking the Pacific. Saturday afternoon was perfect, clear skies, gentle ocean breeze, the kind of weather that makes California real estate so expensive. I arrived at 4:47 p.m., 13 minutes before the ceremony was scheduled to begin. The valet's eyes widened as my Gulfstream's crew car pulled up to the main entrance, a custom Bentley Mulsanne that cost more than most people's houses. "Sir, I don't believe you're on the guest list," the wedding planner stammered, as I approached the main reception desk in my perfectly tailored Tom Ford tuxedo. "I'm not," I replied calmly. "I'm family." The poor woman was clearly torn between protocol and the obvious fact that I belonged in whatever tax bracket allowed private jet arrivals. Let me let me check with the family." "No need," I said, handing her my business card. "Just tell David that his brother's here to congratulate him." The ceremony was already underway on the Ocean View Terrace. Through the glass doors, I could see 200 guests seated in perfect rows watching David and Victoria exchange vows under an archway of white roses. Dad sat in the front row, looking older and frailer than I remembered. Mom dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. I stood in the lobby, watching through the glass like a ghost at the feast. David looked happy, genuinely happy in a way I hadn't seen since we were kids. For a moment, I almost reconsidered what I was about to do. Then I remembered Friday night 11 months ago. The humiliation, the betrayal, the dismissive tone in his voice when he called me not cut out for this level of leadership. Some wounds don't heal. Some debts must be paid. The ceremony ended with champagne toasts and that peculiar mix of joy and relief that accompanies expensive weddings. Guests filtered from the terrace to the ballroom, chattering about the bride's dress and the sunset views. I waited until the receiving line formed before making my entrance. The ballroom fell gradually silent as guests noticed me, whispers spreading like ripples across water. By the time I reached David and Victoria, you could have heard a champagne flute drop. David's face cycled through several emotions: shock, confusion, anger, and finally something approaching fear. "Mike," he managed, "what are you doing here?" "Congratulating the happy couple," I replied, extending my hand to Victoria. She was stunning in her custom Vera Wang gown, but her smile was frozen in place. "Victoria, you look beautiful. I'm Michael David's brother." "Oh," she said faintly. "I've heard about you." "All good things, I hope." I turned back to David. "It's been quite a year, hasn't it, Dave?" The nearby guests were pretending to make conversation, while straining to overhear every word. Dad and Mom pushed through the crowd looking like they'd seen a ghost. "Michael," Dad said carefully, "we didn't expect to see you here." "I can imagine. How are things at Thompson Technologies? I hear you've had some challenges." David's jaw tightened. "We're rebuilding. It takes time to recover from industrial sabotage." I laughed, not mockingly, but with genuine amusement. "Sabotage?" "Dave, I didn't sabotage anything. I simply took my toys and went home. The fact that they were the only toys worth playing with isn't my fault." "You destroyed 40 years of family legacy," Mom hissed, tears starting to form. "How can you stand there smiling?" "The same way you stood there smiling when you handed my company to someone who'd never built anything in his life," I replied. "Funny how perspective works, isn't it?" Victoria looked increasingly uncomfortable. This was supposed to be her fairy tale wedding, not the setting for a family intervention. "Maybe we should discuss this later," she suggested diplomatically. "Oh, there's nothing to discuss," I said cheerfully. "I just wanted to personally deliver my wedding gift." I pulled an envelope from my jacket pocket and handed it to David. His hands shook slightly as he opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a stock certificate for one share of Nextflow Dynamics currently valued at approximately $24,000, based on our latest funding round. "I thought you might like a souvenir," I explained as David stared at the document. "A reminder of what Thompson Technologies could have been worth if you'd been content to let competence run the company instead of entitlement." The crowd had grown larger, tech executives and society figures craning their necks to witness the drama. Several people were discreetly recording with their phones. "Nextflow Dynamics closed last Friday at a $15.8 billion valuation." I continued conversationally. "We're projecting $8.2 billion in revenue this year with 70% profit margins. Not bad for a company that didn't exist 14 months ago, don't you think?" David's face had gone ashen. "You're insane. This is my wedding day. Have you no decency?" "About as much decency as you had at Dad's birthday party," I replied. "But you're right. This is your special day. I shouldn't monopolize your time." I turned to address the crowd, my voice carrying clearly across the silent ballroom. "Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank the Thompson family for an invaluable lesson in business philosophy. Sometimes the best thing that can happen to an entrepreneur is being forced to start over. It clarifies the mind wonderfully. I paused, making eye contact with several prominent tech CEOs in the crowd. For those interested in the future of AI-driven logistics, Nextflow Dynamics will be announcing our IPO filing on Monday. Goldman Sachs is handling the offering, projecting an opening valuation of $25 billion. The room buzzed with sudden interest. An IPO announcement at a wedding was unprecedented, but the numbers I was quoting had captured everyone's attention. "Enjoy the reception," I said, turning back to David and Victoria. "The salmon is excellent, and I hear the band plays requests. You should ask them for 'We Are Family.' It has special meaning for us Thompsons." I walked out of that ballroom the same way I'd walked out of Dad's birthday party, head high, shoulders back, leaving behind a room full of stunned silence and frantic whispers. But this time was different. This time I wasn't the wounded son slinking away from family betrayal. I was the conquering hero, the phoenix risen from ashes, the underestimated genius who'd built something greater than anyone thought possible. The valet brought my Bentley around without being asked. Oh, without. As I settled into the leather seats, my phone was already buzzing with calls from tech reporters, investment bankers, and probably half the wedding guests who'd just witnessed Silicon Valley history. The drive back to Half Moon Bay Airport took 12 minutes. My pilot had the Gulfstream ready for immediate departure. Professional crews don't ask questions when you're paying them $8,000 an hour. As we climbed into the California sky, I looked down at the Ritz-Carlton shrinking below. Somewhere in that fairy tale castle, David was probably trying to salvage his wedding reception while fielding frantic calls from Thomson Technologies' remaining investors. Victoria was learning that marrying into the Thomson family came with complications she hadn't anticipated. I felt empty. Not satisfied, not vengeful, just empty. 20 years of my life had led to this moment, and now that it was over, I wasn't sure what came next. My phone rang. It was Sarah Chen calling from our Menlo Park headquarters. "Mike, what the hell did you just do?" she asked without preamble. "My phone's been ringing nonstop. TechCrunch wants a statement, the Wall Street Journal is asking about IPO timelines, and Goldman's senior partners are demanding an emergency meeting." "I gave a wedding toast," I replied, watching the Pacific Ocean stretch endlessly toward the horizon. "A wedding toast that just moved our IPO timeline up by 6 months and probably added $5 billion to our valuation." "Jesus, Mike. Do you realize what you've done?" I did realize. I'd won, completely, decisively, publicly. David would spend the rest of his life known as the golden boy who destroyed a billion-dollar family business through arrogance and incompetence. Dad would live with the knowledge that he'd chosen wrong and cost his family everything. Mom would have to explain to her bridge club why her brilliant older son was now worth more than most small countries, while her favorite was filing for bankruptcy. But victory, I was learning, tastes different than you expect. Nextflow Dynamics went public on March 15, 2025 at an opening price of $127 per share. We closed the first day at $198, giving the company a market capitalization of $31.2 billion. My 60% stake made me worth approximately $20.9 billion on paper, ranking me number 47 on Forbes' list of richest Americans. Thomson Technologies filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy 3 weeks later. The Austin Business Journal ran a retrospective titled "The Rise and Fall of a Tech Dynasty: How Family Pride Destroyed a Billion-Dollar Empire." I bought their headquarters building at the bankruptcy auction. Not out of spite, it was a good investment property in Austin's hot real estate market. But I'll admit there was poetic justice in owning the building where David had announced my inadequacy as a leader. Dad died of a heart attack on June 3, 2025. I flew back to Austin for the funeral, arriving in the same Gulfstream G650 that had taken me to David's wedding. The service was small, private. Most of the family's old friends had distanced themselves after the company's collapse. David looked older, grayer, defeated. We shook hands at the graveside but didn't speak. Some wounds run too deep for words even in the presence of death. Mom still lives in the Pflugerville house where we grew up. I send her a Christmas card every year and make sure her medical bills are covered, but we haven't spoken since Dad's funeral. She made her choice, and so did I. The tech press loves to analyze what they call the Thomson family tragedy, a cautionary tale about nepotism, family dynamics, and the price of underestimating quiet competence. Harvard Business School now teaches a case study based on our story, focusing on governance structures in family businesses. But they all miss the real lesson. Sometimes the people closest to you are the ones most likely to stab you in the back. Sometimes family isn't about blood, It's about respect, trust, and recognizing talent regardless of birth order or favoritism. I'm 46 years old now, worth more money than I can spend in several lifetimes running a company that's reshaping global commerce. I should feel victorious. I should feel validated. Instead, I feel lonely. Success, it turns out, is a cold companion when you've had to destroy everything you once loved to achieve it. The empire I built on the ashes of my family's betrayal is magnificent, efficient, and profitable. But late at night in my Mendocino house, staring out at the endless Pacific, I sometimes wonder if winning was worth the cost. Then I remember David's smug face at Dad's birthday party, the way he dismissed 20 years of my work with casual cruelty, the way Mom nodded along with his character assassination. I remember the humiliation, the betrayal, the absolute certainty in their voices that I was not cut out for this level of leadership. And I sleep just fine. The world is full of David Thompson's golden children who mistake privilege for competence, entitlement, for leadership, family favoritism, for business acumen. They rise to positions they haven't earned, make decisions they're not qualified for, and destroy value while congratulating themselves on their vision. But the world is also full of people like me, quiet builders who work in the shadows, creating value while others take credit, solving problems while others pose for photos. We're the ones who actually know how things work, who understand that success is built on competence, not connections. And sometimes, if you're very patient and very prepared, you get the chance to show everyone the difference. My name is Michael Thompson. I built a family business into a $1 billion empire, watched my family steal it from me, then built an even bigger empire just to prove they were wrong. This is America, where merit eventually wins, and the best revenge is massive success. Sometimes it just takes a while to collect.